Hey, Top G is here. In this channel I will show you the best manhwa recap content you will ever find in any other YouTube channel. So, spend your time in this quality content, and don't go anywhere. I have a surprise for you in the end.
In the pitch-black heart of the forest, during the dead of night, a man with blonde hair found it difficult to move forward, his leg pierced by several darts. Overwhelmed with anger and frustration, he realized he couldn't feel his injured limb. Out of nowhere, he noticed another individual sprinting in his direction and he shouted the person's name. The individual, named Dale, arrived with heart-wrenching news: their group had been decimated, fallen prey to a horrific creature lurking in the woods. The blonde-haired guy found it hard to believe that their team of PK pros with an average level of 40 could all have died to one naked psycho. As the two conversed, some darts suddenly landed on Dale's face, causing the yellow-haired guy to scream in terror. He demanded to know who the attacker was, but the only response he got was the attacker repeating his words back to him: "Who am I?" The scene shifted to the Demon King's castle, where battle god Damien, the protagonist of our story, was engaged in a fierce battle. He grimaced in pain, realizing that he had taken too much damage. Despite his high level of 904 and being ranked number 1 in the field of honor, he found himself struggling to stay alive. Suddenly, he heard a flurry of notifications, one after another, announcing abnormal states affecting his character. Battle god Damien gritted his teeth as he read each notification, realizing that his character had fallen into a state of weakness, bleeding, and sealed, which meant he could not use any skills. He could feel the growing frustration and despair building up inside him. As he tried to keep his character alive, another notification came in, informing him that his character had fallen into a state of petrification, causing him to move at a slower pace. Battle god Damien wondered to himself if there were always so many abnormal states in the game, as he tried to fight his way out of this situation. As battle god Damien struggled to hold on, he thought to himself that not even Saint Magnus or the High Heaven Immortal would be able to heal him at this point. Suddenly, an insulting voice reverberated through the surroundings, ridiculing him for his persistent efforts and likening him to a mere cockroach. The voice was that of King Arthur, the formidable leader of the Demon King expedition. Damien immediately identified the voice and began to shout Jong Yumin's name in desperation. However, before he could complete his sentence, Arthur launched a fierce attack on him with his magical staff. Amidst the turmoil, Damien received a grave warning that his stamina had dipped below the acceptable limit, indicating the imminent risk of being ejected from the virtual environment. Confused and weakened, Damien asked why Arthur had attacked him. However, Arthur seemed to be distracted by some notifications he received about the Lord of Abyss, Abraxas, raising his mana and attempting supergeneration and 7th demonic Dao style. Frustrated that the fight was cut short, Arthur muttered to himself that it was just getting fun. As Arthur cast another spell, a notification popped up, warning of the activation of the ultimate spell, the multi-leveled Weather Reversal Realm Destruction. Couldn't help but feel impressed despite the danger he was in. After the spell was cast, Arthur attacked Damien once more, taunting him about his status as a loser and a lower-class individual who had somehow become a hero. Damien, now battered and bruised, couldn't help but wonder where things had gone wrong. 10 years ago, the virtual reality game Arsha Chronicle or AC was released, featuring stunning graphics and lively NPCs that captured players' attention. The game's main attraction, the Demon King Raid, offered the first player to clear the quest the opportunity to establish a kingdom, become the hero of the AC world, and win a massive trophy. Damien was one of many players who devoted their lives to AC, dedicating all their time and energy to the game for a decade. Despite his family's attempts to discourage him, Damien refused to listen, convinced that winning the game's reward was the only way to make up for his ruined life. It was during the Demon King raid that Damien met King Arthur, also known as Jong Yumin, a servant of the goddess Arya who possessed the Infinite Circle, granting him endless mana. With his warm personality and charisma, King Arthur led the expedition that allowed them to reach the Demon King's castle. Damien's inner thoughts raced as he realized that there was only a little more left to complete the raid. Suddenly, King Arthur spoke up, acknowledging the importance of Damien's contribution to their victory. However, Damien's trust was shaken when he asked King Arthur if he had been planning to betray him from the start. King Arthur chuckled at the question, but his laughter quickly turned into violent aggression as he started beating Damien again, calling him a piece of shit and a useless parasite. Damien was shocked and scared as he thought about the possibility of dying without accomplishing anything, all because of a traitor like King Arthur. But then, a voice spoke to him, offering him a chance for revenge and a new purpose. Abraxas, the Lord of the Abyss, offered to help Damien and in exchange asked him to kill the goddess of light, Arya, and become the Avenger of Chaos. Damien was hesitant at first, but the thought of finally achieving something after all his years of dedication was too tempting to resist. As King Arthur continued to taunt and beat him, Damien made his decision. He would take Abraxas's offer and become the Avenger Damien, the one who would bring chaos to the land. King Arthur's brutal attack was suddenly interrupted as Damien woke up in his room, drenched in sweat. He was disoriented and confused, wondering how he had gotten there. As he tried to make sense of what was happening, his brother Ma Jinhoon burst into the room and told him it was time to eat. Damien was taken aback, as he knew that his brother was supposed to be in the military as an officer. However, he was now wearing a school uniform, and Damien couldn't help but wonder if he had gone insane. He looked at the calendar and realized that it was July 28, 2020, the time when Arisa Chronicles beta was released. Damien began to wonder if he had somehow gone back in time. The confusion and uncertainty left him feeling lost and disoriented, unsure of what was happening or what would happen next. Damien's mother and brother were both puzzled by his strange behavior, wondering why he was acting weirdly. As they ate together, Damien couldn't help but marvel at the delicious taste of his mother's cooking, feeling transported back to his childhood. However, his thoughts were interrupted by a commercial on the television for Arisa Chronicle, the world's first virtual reality game. Damien realized that today was the launch of the open beta for the game. He told his mother that he was going to his own house, and she reminded him to take care of himself and call her often. Damien hailed a taxi, and instructed the driver to go to Junjong Station as quickly as possible. Damien's thoughts drifted back 10 years to a difficult time in his life. It was the time when the Galaxy M24 app was the best capsule available and his life was at its toughest. He had taken on the responsibility of providing for his family in his father's absence, working tirelessly to make ends meet. The weight of the responsibility had been too much for him to bear, and he had sought refuge in the virtual world of the game, cutting off all ties with his family. Damien, lost in his thoughts, was suddenly interrupted by a notification. It was alarming, indicating that the countdown had started, and he had to log into the game, or he would die. Damien was confused as he had not even logged in yet. As he tried to make sense of the situation, he felt a sharp pain in his head, and a mysterious voice started speaking to him. However, he couldn't understand what it was saying. Amid his confusion, the taxi driver noticed Damien's pain and asked if he was okay. Some time later Damien reached Sinsadong Garosugil, a popular street in Korea, and visited a virtual reality electronics store called Evertail Store. He was greeted by a receptionist who informed him that all of the store's capsules were purchased on a reservation-based service. The receptionist suggested that he take a customized examination, but Damien insisted on seeing a product that was released that day. The receptionist took him to a refurbished product that was cancelled by another customer and was used as the store's demonstration product. Damien quickly agreed to purchase it and requested delivery and installation that afternoon. Later that afternoon, Damien entered the capsule and was greeted by the voice of the system window, notifying him of the user registration progress. He listened as the system announced that the virtual reality mode had started synchronization, and that his user registration had been completed. Damien reflected on the fact that he had used most of his saved money for this moment, but he couldn't do anything about it now. He was certain that he had made the right decision as he heard the voice of the Demon King Abraxas, leaving no doubt in his mind that he was in the right place. As the system announced that the virtual reality mode synchronization was complete, Damien was ready to start his journey in the game and confidently gave the command to start. At the top-secret department of Oracle in Evertail headquarters in San Francisco, California, strange errors were popping up on the screen. Notifications reported an error code with warnings of mainstream detection, and an acceleration in blocking the main protocol of Arisa Chronicle. Operator Chloe urgently called for a code black emergency and instructed all employees to take action. Team leader Master Hyuk rushed over to see what was going on and asked when the error had started. Chloe reported that it had just started, and the Akashic record of blocking protocol for the mainstream was gradually accelerating. If this continued, they might lose all control. The mainstream was an unknown territory that had yet to be explored, and the Akashic record was a hyper-AI that created AC. Hyokjin and Oracle were currently watching over it, but if something went wrong, it could erase the system and the entire game. The notifications on the screen reported that the right of control over the mainstream had decreased to 48%, then 36%, and finally below 25%, with a warning that the Akashic record had started to eat away at the server. Master Hyuk decided to give up control over the mainstream quickly to prevent losing all of AC. The Akashic record removed its right of control, paused the blocking protocol, and activated the mainstream. Hyuk confirmed that it was starting now. Damien entered the game and received notifications indicating his connection to the game, with his player name, date of connection, and current location, the Whispering Island. He recalled his 10 years of gameplay and his desire for revenge against Jong Yumin for the humiliations he had suffered. As you prepare to start your journey in the beginner's village, you realize that you are in a different location and you don't know where you are. Suddenly, a notification appears confirming your connection log and initiating a countdown for the game's test. The notification outlines 3 conditions: if you fail to log in within 168 hours, your life will end. If your character dies, you will also die, and if you don't complete a goal within a given time, you will die. All of this might leave you feeling confused and frustrated, and you might even experience a painful headache. you might be shocked to learn that your sense limit has been removed, and your final goal is now to become the Demon King's Descent, with a remaining time of 87,599 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. You might wonder what effects the game has on your physical body. Then, he received another notification stating that a class would be given on the condition of the final goal, specifically on the Witch Doctor class. Damien was taken aback by this new information and cursed the game in disbelief. Witch Doctors were beings who used primitive powers and were closely related to death, ancient sorcery, and curses. Their identities were shrouded in mystery, and they believed that death was salvation. Damien was shocked to discover that his in-game character, Damien, was now a level 1 Witch Doctor with terrible stats. He was disappointed with his new class and the fact that it was a hidden class, meaning it was difficult to obtain and not well known. The notification also described the Witch Doctor class, revealing that they specialized in spells related to poison, curses, summons, bones, blood, corpses, and souls. The class was known for causing damage over time, making it an output type, damage-dealing class. Damien was frustrated with his new class, particularly because the poison was a subclass special attack, and he didn't feel it suited him. Suddenly, notifications appeared on Damien's screen, warning him that he had committed a crime and that his alignment was extremely low and a penalty had been imposed, which Damien found difficult to comprehend. The alignment of this level was only possible if he had killed around 1 billion people. Did this even make any sense? He wondered if it was a bug. The penalty was severe, with a 500% decrease in experience points upon death. A 500% increase in the probability of dropping items upon death. A 500% increase in the probability of equipment being destroyed upon death, nullification of the safe zone's shield, and being attacked by NPCs. He realized that a penalty like this was essentially branding him as the Demon King. Damien arrived in Dunvaton village and went straight to the village head's home to get a quest. However, he wore a paper bag over his head which caught the attention of the village head, Elmore. When asked why he was wearing a paper bag over his head, Damien awkwardly replied that it was just cool. He inwardly felt embarrassed about it but knew he had to wear it because of the compulsory quest. The village head quickly moved on to give Damien a quest, instructing him to catch 10 chicks from Whispering Island. The problem was that the chicks had eaten all of their feeds, leaving none in the storerooms. Damien listened carefully and accepted the quest. He then made his way through the mountains behind Dunvaton village. He spotted a small chick standing alone and couldn't resist the opportunity to catch it. He threw a dart and successfully caught the chick, but as he panted for breath, he realized that he only had 1 HP. He received a notification reminding him of his quest to catch the chicks and protect the storerooms on Whispering Island. In order to complete the tutorial quest, you must catch 10 chicks and retrieve 10 yellow feathers. Unfortunately, you have only caught 1 chick, and your progress stands at 10%. The reward for finishing the quest is Elmore's beginner set and recommendation. Upon checking your skill status, you may find that only 1 skill, the shooting of poisonous needles, has been unlocked, making the quest even more challenging. As Damien continued to hunt for chicks, he became more skilled and efficient with his 1 unlocked skill. He managed to catch several more and gained more experience points along the way. Meanwhile, in the Yoshin Group's building, Jong Yumin, also known as King Arthur, had just exited a virtual reality capsule. He had been testing out a new game and was pleased with the experience so far. His secretary updated him on the game's popularity, and Jong Yumin felt confident that it would be a success. His phone rang, and he spoke to the director of the Yoshin Group, who had prepared everything he needed to excel in the game, including the best class for him, the fastest leveling method, and all the necessary equipment. Jong Yumin, excited to dominate the game, hung up the phone and thought to himself that he was looking forward to it. Damien had just completed his quest to catch 10 chicks from Whispering Island, and he was breathing heavily from the effort. But his exhaustion was soon replaced with excitement as he received a notification that he had leveled up. He exclaimed with joy, but when he looked at his status screen, he was awestruck by what he saw. His name was listed as Damien, and his class was Witch Doctor. His stats showed a strength, agility, intelligence, talent, and luck of only 1, but he had 5 remaining stat points. Damien couldn't believe that he had gained 5 stat points instead of the usual 2, and he wondered if it was because he had a hidden class. He realized that things might not be as bad as he thought and became determined to shred Jong Yumin into pieces. Damien ran through the village, with a paper bag in his hand and a group of hens running behind him. The other players were surprised to see the sight, and they started to speculate about Damien's identity and intentions. Some of them wondered if he was a tamer, but others pointed out that tamers only raise a single strong familiar. One player even predicted that Damien would soon die due to his reckless behavior. But Damien was focused on his quest to gather as many chickens as possible, and he quickly shot a dart at one of the hens, killing it in 1 shot. While on a quest for Elmore, Damien faced a challenge when he encountered hostile hens. He questioned if he had gone too far, but he needed to gather a group of chickens to complete the quest quickly. Damien scoured the village for something and soon set up a trap, successfully catching all the hens in a pit. He was satisfied with his success and ready to use the chickens to increase his EXP. Suddenly, notifications appeared, and Damien realized that other players were stealing his targets. They were hunting the hens he had set up for his quest in a nearby forest, earning easy experience points. As the players celebrated their progress, Damien approached them and asked them, "Are you enjoying that?" Suddenly, he threw a punch straight at the face of the player named Cheol Minjiang, sending him flying and landing at a little distance. Cheol Minjiang received several notifications on his screen, including a status effect notification that his character had fainted and he could not control it for the next 5 seconds. Damien accused his opponents of eating his stuff and demanded that they spit it out while he was pointing at them. The opponents were shocked and asked for proof, but Damien pointed at the dead hens lying around and accused them of lying. He warned them that this was their last chance and asked them to leave after spitting out what they had eaten. One of the knocked out opponents got up and attacked Damien, calling him a son of a bitch. Damien responded by warning him and striking him with a dart blower. The opponents were outraged by Damien's actions and attacked him together. However, Damien managed to avoid all their attacks and struck each one of them with his dart blower, repeating his demand for them to spit out what they had eaten. After being beaten up, the opponents questioned Damien's behavior, but they then received a notification that their party member, Donkeol, had died. One of them guessed that Damien was a chaotic user. Chaotic users were known for specializing in player killing and were equivalent to criminals in the game. Upon hearing this, they all started to run. But Damien wasn't going to let them escape. He blew darts at them, and they received a notification that their characters had been poisoned. After all of them were down, Damien realized that one of them was missing. He wondered out loud where the last one was hiding. The missing guy had hidden in a bush, muttering curses under his breath. He tried to log out, but a notification popped up, saying that could not log out during an active battle and there were still 300 seconds left until logout was available. He blamed his bad luck for running into a chaotic user. But Damien found him and said hello before blowing a dart at him and finishing him off. Damien was elated to see the notifications that he had acquired yellow and white feathers, and basic HP potions, and had reached level 10. He was particularly excited to finally be able to use the level 10 skills that were previously locked. This yielded better results than he had initially thought. However, his excitement was short-lived as another barrage of notifications popped up. He had committed PK, and his alignment had decreased by 1. His current alignment was already too low, so there was no additional alignment to decrease. Damien, upon seeing that his alignment didn't decrease further, remarked that he had already hit the bottom. He chuckled to himself as he read the effects of the atrocity title, which included an increase in the drop rate of items and gold from the victim of PK, as well as automatic possession of assets and experience from the victim of PK. At this point, he considered it to be cheating, but he was pleased with the outcome. He looked forward to leveling up from that point forward. Damien had been focusing on leveling up lately and decided to visit the supermarket to stock up on food supplies. As he entered the store, he recognized the cashier as someone from his neighborhood and they exchanged greetings. Damien began loading his cart with convenience foods, but the cashier expressed concern about the amount of processed foods he was buying. Damien explained that he was busy and couldn't cook as often as he would like. The cashier seemed unconvinced but continued to nag him up for his purchases. When Damien pulled out his wallet to pay, the cashier told him to put it away and that it wasn't even that expensive. He was surprised but grateful for the gesture. Damien finished packing his food supplies and was about to leave the store when suddenly a news story started playing on the TV screen by the cash register. The story was about Jong Yumin, the youngest player of the Tempest of Time and Space, retiring from the game. Damien was taken aback by the news and repeated the name in disbelief. The cashier noticed Damien's reaction and asked if he knew the famous player. He hesitated for a moment before admitting that Jong Yumin was indeed pretty famous. The cashier seemed surprised and started gushing about Jong Yumin's background, describing him as tall, handsome, and amazing at gaming. However, Damien seemed lost in thought and didn't pay much attention to the cashier's words. He had a serious look on his face. In a dense forest near Dunvaton village, Damien hunted some chickens while thinking about Jong Yumin's impending arrival. Suddenly, he received a notification saying that he had leveled up and reached level 15. But Damien was not happy as he had realized that he needed to become much stronger than he was now and could not slack off. He muttered to himself that it was somewhere around there and pulled up a quest titled, The Predator of the Whispering Island, which was classified as an epic quest. The quest required him to defeat the mutated wild boar and bring back its hide. The progress on the quest was at 0%, and the reward for completing the quest was Elmore's recommendation. Damien knew that this was the last quest on the island, and if he completed it, he could go somewhere else with Elmore's recommendation. However, wild boars tended to migrate frequently, making them hard to locate. If Damien didn't find the boar's lair within an hour, he would have to wait another hour for it to respawn. Damien set off on his quest, determined to complete it and become even stronger. Damien spotted the boar easily and couldn't believe his luck. The boar was a species of wild beast and an elite type with a level of 30. Damien knew he had to be careful. He remembered that the monster types in the game were categorized as normal, elite, named, and champion, and that the elite and higher types had special characteristics. There were 8 variations in each of the 3 categories: attack, defense, and crowd control, making a total of 24 variations. Damien decided to attack the boar with his skill, Corruption Elixir, to try and find out its characteristics. The elixir hit the boar, and it let out a loud squeal. The boar looked around, trying to find the attacker, but Damien was hiding in a tree. He then greeted the boar, and the boar attacked him. Damien dodged the boar's attack, effortlessly evading the creature's deadly tusks. He taunted the beast, beckoning it to come closer with a confident smirk on his face. In a fluid motion, Damien grabbed another elixir and hurled it towards the boar. The elixir found its mark, hitting the creature with pinpoint accuracy. The boar let out another agonizing squeal as the elixir took effect. Damien observed the boar closely and concluded that the boar didn't have physical immunity. He then began attacking the wild boar relentlessly to study its behavior. After several attempts, he observed that the boar did not summon monsters, had no magical immunity, and lacked a defensive barrier. He was pleased to receive notifications that the wild boar's defensive mechanism had corroded, indicating that his corruption elixir was working well. However, the boar attacked again, and Damien had to dodge quickly to avoid getting hit. He thought to himself that it was a close call. The boar was visibly angry and charged at him again, but Damien dismissed it as typical behavior for a dumb beast species. Suddenly, a wall appeared in front of him, which he had never seen before. Damien was surprised and wondered if the boar's characteristic was wall formation. As the boar charged towards him, Damien realized that he couldn't dodge it and thought to himself that he was in trouble. The boar crashed into Damien, and the impact caused a cloud of dust to cover the area of the collision. And his paper bag mask floated in the air. As Damien emerged from the cloud of dust, he was visibly enraged and his entire body turned red, and a deadly aura surrounded him. This was due to his skill called Zombification, which was currently at level 1 with a passive attribute of Corpse. The skill allowed him to transform into an undead when his HP reached 0 and prevented his HP from falling below 1 for 600 seconds. When activated, he emitted a plague aura that poisoned and made opponents bleed within a 3-meter radius. However, he couldn't use any other skills while the skill was activated, and there was a cooldown period of 1800 seconds. Damien's anger boiled over as he shouted at the wild boar, cursing the creature for hurting him. The sudden outburst of rage startled the boar, causing it to let out a frightened squeal in response. Damien's transformation seemed to have intimidated the wild boar, which now stood frozen in fear. Despite its fear, Damien continued to lash out at the boar, blaming it for nearly causing his demise. Damien fiercely punched the boar, causing it to squeal in pain. Notifications began to flood in, revealing that the wild boar was bleeding and poisoned. Damien was informed that he only had 10 seconds left until the zombification ended, but he remained confident. With his time running out, Damien quickly activated his skill, Plague Aura, determined to defeat the boar once and for all. As the notifications counted down the remaining seconds, Damien declared that he would turn the boar into a bloody pulp. The tension mounted as the seconds ticked away, but Damien's determination did not waver. Finally, with the countdown complete, Damien declared that the boar was done for. Just as the last notification sounded, Damien struck the final blow, defeating the wild boar. Damien felt exhausted and fell to the ground, huffing and puffing. However, he also felt accomplished, as the notifications informed him that he had gained experience and had leveled up to level 16. He had also obtained the wild boar's fangs, hide, and essence, as well as a substantial amount of gold. After that, another set of notifications started pouring in. One notification indicated that Damien had obtained the title, The One Who Killed the Wild Boar Alone, while another notification stated that he had cleared the quest, The Predator of the Whispering Island. Upon seeing these notifications, Damien felt a sense of accomplishment and excitement. He thought to himself how he could hog all the rewards since he cleared the quest and earned the title, The One Who Defeated the Boar Alone. The title came with bonuses such as strength and movement speed increases and a characteristic resistance boost. Damien was thrilled to have earned a solo clear title and took a look at the items he had obtained. He planned on giving the hide to Elmore, and he was still considering what to do with the fangs and essence. Damien was engrossed in checking his acquired items when he heard a voice from behind. Turning around, he saw an old man with a white beard and a muscular body, who appeared to have materialized out of thin air. The old man seemed to be amused by Damien's presence, commenting on his peculiar nature as an otherworld adventurer who had risen again after death. Damien was puzzled by the old man's sudden appearance and noticed that his name was unclear, appearing as a question mark on his status window. Although the old man looked human, it was difficult to discern his age and level, except for the fact that he appeared to have lived for countless millennia. The old man's status window also warned that he had a bad temper, and Damien should be careful not to get killed. Damien was surprised that he was unable to see the old man's other information and wondered why this was the case. The old man seemed to be more interested in Damien and asked him how he was able to move as a dead man. The old man's question took Damien aback and was unsure how to respond. The old man approached Damien and touched his forehead. Damien felt uneasy and asked him to keep his distance. The old man ignored Damien's request and continued examining the small rune on his forehead. The old man identified Damien as an otherworld adventurer who had borrowed the power of darkness to become undead momentarily. Damien was surprised and asked the old man how he knew. The old man calmly replied that he could see it very clearly, but Damien was not satisfied with his response and asked him to back away. Despite Damien's frustration, the old man seemed unfazed and continued to speak, saying that it was not bad to borrow the power of darkness, as it would make it harder for Damien to die. However, he questioned why an otherworld adventurer would harbor such a high level of darkness equivalent to that of the Demon King. At this point, Damien heard notifications indicating that new information had been updated, and the NPC's information was being displayed. Damien saw the new information and he was surprised to learn that the old man's name was K-Run, Priest of the Apocalypse. According to the information displayed, K-Run was a representative of the Forgotten God Shaka and the chief of the Black Cult. He appeared to have lived for uncountable millennia and was currently seeking a talent to defeat Arya, the Queen of the Gods. Damien was taken aback by this information and muttered to himself in disbelief. He had never heard of the Priest of the Apocalypse or the Black Cult before. As Damien continued reading, he learned that Kirun's level and age were unknown and that he had a reputation for being ill-tempered. Although this warning made Damien cautious, he found it hard to believe that the Black Cult was a real thing. K-Run, the seventh chief priest of the god Shaka, became furious when Damien referred to his beliefs as a pseudo-cult. K-Run announced his intention to spread the gospel of the apocalypse after defeating the Queen of the Gods. Despite Damien's attempts at reasoning with him, K-Run ignored him and attacked. Damien was able to dodge the first attack, but he was taken aback by its force. K-Run attacked again, but Damien managed to dodge again and called him a crazy old man. The destructive power behind Kirun's blows amazed him. Kirun taunted Damien, impressed by his ability to dodge, and challenged him to keep doing so. Damien took a deep breath and tried to calm his nerves. He knew he had to face K-Run, the priest of the apocalypse, and survive this trial. K-Run seemed to be approaching senility, and his behavior was that of a seriously deranged person. Damien wondered what he could do in this situation. As he was lost in thought, Damien received a notification that K-Run was displaying hostility towards him. He looked up and saw the old man staring at him with wild eyes. Damien braced himself for a fight and wondered how he could defeat this crazy old man. But before he could even take a step forward, Damien received another notification. It was a quest, and he had to survive Kirun's trial to progress. But what surprised Damien even more was that it was a mainstream quest. Damien stood still, lost in his thoughts about the importance of the mainstream quests. These quests were only given to a select few users and could decide the future of the game. The impact of the user's actions on the world of AC was immense and could potentially change it completely. But as he pondered on this, he couldn't help but wonder what an old man had to do with the mainstream quests. Before he could finish his thoughts, K-Run interrupted him, attacking him with a sharp remark, demanding to know why he was just standing there like a dumb log. Damien quickly dodged the attack, but he couldn't help but think about the old man and his possible connection to the mainstream quests. Memories of his own experience as the battle god flooded his mind, particularly the time when he was tasked with defeating Abraxas alongside the Six Masters in the treacherous Abyss dungeon. He knew that the success or failure of these quests could have a massive impact on the world of AC, and he was determined to clear them no matter what. Suddenly, K-Run caught Damien off guard once again, attacking him and berating him for hesitating. Damien knew that he had to act quickly, so he chanted a mantra and activated a skill called Bloody Impulse. He decided to stop overthinking and calculating and instead approached K-Run with sincerity and his basic impulses. Damien braced himself for the upcoming battle, knowing that he couldn't afford to lose. He was determined to succeed in the mainstream quest, no matter the cost. Kirun's eyes blazed with fury as he charged towards Damien, his fist pulled back in a powerful punch. The impact was devastating. The ground shook violently, and the force of the blow sent shockwaves through the air. Kirun's powerful punch had caused an explosion, and as the dust settled, he shouted in frustration towards Damien, asking how long he was planning to keep running away. Damien had activated his zombification skill and managed to survive Kirun's attack. Kirun wasn't done yet, so he started attacking him again. As he dodged Kirun's onslaught, Damien wondered why K-Run was so strong despite not being a martial artist. Enraged by Damien's ability to dodge his attacks, K-Run yelled at him to hold still. Despite Kirun's angry shouts, Damien continued to dodge and noticed that he could see Kirun's movements better than before. As he gained distance from K-Run, Damien thought that if he could stall for time, he could survive the fight. However, his thoughts were interrupted when he saw K-Run gathering energy between his hands. To Damien's surprise, K-Run prepared a Kamehameha pose and taunted him, asking if he could dodge this attack as well. Damien, shocked and bewildered, exclaimed in disbelief. K-Run then launched his attack, shouting, "Die!" This time, Damien had no chance to dodge and got hit by the attack. After the explosion, Damien found himself on his knees, but he was still alive. Suddenly, a notification sounded, indicating that only 2 seconds were remaining. Who was nearby, was impressed by Damien's sturdy body and complimented him on his physique. Damien responded with a hint of modesty, saying that it was nothing compared to Kirun's. As the notification reached 1 second, the countdown ended, and another notification chimed in, saying, "Zombification has ended." Damien felt relieved after escaping this near-death scenario. But the next notification brought him good news: "You have cleared the quest Kirun's trial." K-Run, who had been silent until that moment, spoke up with a hint of sarcasm, remarking that Damien's mouth was still functioning despite the ordeal they had just gone through. Damien retorted with a hint of pride, saying that he now had to live life to the fullest since he had obtained this opportunity. K-Run then asked about Damien's power of darkness, which he had noticed earlier. Damien confirmed that he possessed that power and asked if K-Run recognized it. K-Run responded to Damien's question with a smirk, indicating that he recognized Damien's power of darkness. He mentioned that as the chief priest of the 7th god Shaka, he couldn't possibly miss it. Damien asked K-Run about the 7th god Shaka, and K-Run responded by praising him as the best god of Arsha. He explained that Shaka was the lord of darkness and apocalypse, incomparable to Arya, and he is the greatest of all the gods. Damien was a little confused, thinking that the 6 great gods were Supreme Goddess Arya of the Light, Phoenix of Fire, Nysa of Water, Tenasil of Tree, Oriet of Iron, and Crowd of Earth. However, he realized that there was no way the system would lie. Damien simply nodded, and K-Run then took the opportunity to get straight to the point. Damien got ready to listen, thinking that K-Run was finally getting to the point after causing all this ruckus. K-Run then asked Damien if he wanted to become stronger, mentioning that otherworld adventurers desired fast growth and strength. Damien was taken aback by the suggestion, but before he could respond, K-Run suggested that Damien become his disciple. Damien was taken aback by Kirun's suggestion and began to walk away while bidding him farewell. Damien's announcement of departure caused K-Run to become angry. He hit Damien on the head and demanded to know where he was going. Damien responded by calling K-Run an old man, which only fueled his anger. K-Run boasted about the power of Lord Shaka and how even Damien could become a ruler if he became Kirun's disciple. However, Damien challenged Kirun's claims and asked if he would believe them if he were in Damien's position. K-Run was surprised by Damien's challenge, but eventually showed him a book in an attempt to persuade him to become his disciple. While examining the book, Damien received a notification saying that the Apocalypse Invocation and the Book of the Black Covenant were emitting a faint light. This puzzled him. As he continued to look at the book, he received another notification saying that the mainstream encounter with the 7th god had been activated. K-Run then explained to Damien that the book was a divine object and the only tool that would allow him to meet Lord Shaka. Damien was skeptical, but K-Run instructed him to open the book. As Damien opened the book, K-Run warned him not to make any further movements. Confused, Damien looked back at K-Run, only to see him attacking him with a dart blower. Damien was hit by the dart and lost consciousness. When he woke up, he found himself in a cave-like structure, muttering in frustration about Kirun's actions. As Damien was trying to process his thoughts, he received a notification telling him new location information has been updated, but his current location was still showing as unknown. Suddenly, someone appeared in front of Damien. As he looked up to see what it was, he found a small boy standing in front of him. He looked at the boy carefully, trying to discern if there was anything unusual about him, but couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. The boy, on the other hand, seemed to be completely unfazed by Damien's presence and started dancing around him. Damien, feeling a bit annoyed at the kid's antics, told him to stop fooling around and asked where they were. The boy stopped and looked at Damien carefully before commenting on his scent. Damien, confused, started to smell himself before the boy confirmed that he liked Damien's scent and asked if they could be friends. Damien was taken aback by the boy's sudden request and couldn't help but wonder what was going on. Damien asked the boy if he had any friends. The boy's response was an angry one, insisting that he did indeed have many friends. He even went so far as to offer to give Damien a friend of his own. To Damien's surprise, the boy then pointed to a group of chicks that were pecking around on the ground nearby. They soon began to flock around him, playing and chirping with enthusiasm. The boy was clouded by his feathered friends and insisted that they were all his loyal companions. Damien was touched by the boy's kind gesture and agreed to be his friend. They shook hands and the boy declared that we were friends. However, after the boy declared that they were friends, Damien suddenly felt dizzy and collapsed. Damien slowly opened his eyes and gasped for air. He felt disoriented and confused, trying to piece together what had happened. As his vision cleared, he noticed K-Run sitting beside him. K-Run asked how he felt, relieved to see Damien conscious. But Damien's frustration and anger boiled over, and he lunged at K-Run, catching him by the throat. K-Run struggled to break free, but Damien's grip tightened around his throat. In a moment of desperation, K-Run headbutted Damien on the forehead, causing him to stumble backward. Damien felt the world spin as he began to fall backward in at that moment. He heard a notification alert. Status effect. Your character is in a critical condition. Until you have recovered your strength, your character is unable to move. Realizing that this wasn't the first time he had found himself in this situation, he thought, "Ah shit, here we go again." Damien slowly opened his eyes and saw K-Run sitting in front of him once again. He winced at the pain in his head and muttered to himself about Kirun's thick skull. K-Run asked what he had said, but Damien quickly brushed it off, knowing he couldn't afford to anger the old man any further. Damien thought to himself that K-Run may look homeless and senile, but he was incredibly strong. He knew he needed to swallow his pride and follow Kirun's lead if he wanted to survive. K-Run then asked about Damien's conversation with Lord Shaka, and Damien stumbled over his words, unsure of what to say. He eventually admitted that Lord Shaka had asked to become friends. Damien's response surprised Kiran. He explained that friendship was a relationship of brotherly affection, and that Lord Shaka had internally decided that Damien should become his successor. Damien was confused and tried to ask for clarification, but K-Run interrupted him and said that he just needed to follow him from now on. K-Run laughed and Damien wondered if it was right to go along with this plan. Suddenly, a notification appeared, signaling that Damien had cleared the mainstream encounter with the seventh god. Damien sighed and reassured himself that this was a good thing. K-Run motioned for Damien to take a seat, and the two of them settled down to hear what K-Run had to say. Damien couldn't help but wonder if they were going to meditate or do something spiritual. But K-Run quickly dispelled that notion and said that he wanted to talk to Damien about their upcoming plans. As K-Run spoke, Damien initially found himself drifting off, assuming it was just another old story he had heard before. However, his curiosity was piqued as K-Run delved into the topic of the seven gods of their land. K-Run elaborated that the circle of life and death remained harmonious, all thanks to the god of creation, Arya of light, and the god of the apocalypse, Shaka. However, one day Arya approached the other five gods, expressing her concern about Shaka's power of destruction. She suggested that they restrict it, and although there were differences in opinion, they ultimately decided to go ahead with the plan. The war between Lord Shaka and the six gods began, and it was fierce. The heavens shook, and the earth split open. The battle raged on for a considerable time, and despite being the god of apocalypse, Lord Shaka was unable to defeat all six gods. In the end, he was vanquished, leaving his family behind as he fell into an eternal sleep, retaining only his divine status. The seventh god was forgotten by the people. At first, Damien assumed that the senile old man was a member of Lord Shaka's family. However, as K-Run explained further, Damien's comprehension of the situation grew. He came to realize that Lord Shaka, who represented the force of darkness, was actually a pillar of balance that maintained equilibrium in the world. Without him, evil was able to thrive. Damien understood the gravity of the situation and the importance of what K-Run was asking of him. K-Run revealed that he had roamed the continent for thousands of years, searching for a force powerful enough to defeat Arya and the five gods and resurrect Lord Shaka. He asked Damien if he was willing to become his disciple and the sword of Lord Shaka to defeat the six gods, including Arya of Light and their family. Damien heard the notification and realized that Kirun's wish had been activated. He was given the option to accept the quest or not. Damien's mind raced as he tried to process everything that had just been revealed to him. The forgotten seventh god, Lord Shaka, was the key to maintaining balance in the world. And because of his absence, the demons were born and evil had spread throughout the land. It was a daunting task, but Damien had accepted the quest to become the sword of Lord Shaka and defeat the six gods, including Arya of Light and their family. As he bowed down to K-Run, Damien felt a sense of determination and purpose wash over him. He had accepted the role of the agent of revenge and formed a relationship with the priest of the apocalypse. The old man's laughter echoed through the room as he welcomed Damien as his successor. With a newfound sense of purpose, Damien couldn't help but think of Jong Yumin. But now, he saw an opportunity for revenge. Once he was done training with K-Run, he would be ready to face Jong Yumin and bring him to justice. K-Run interrupted Damien's thoughts and announced his departure. Damien respectfully bowed and wished his master well. However, Damien suddenly realized that something was amiss and called out to K-Run. He asked if there was anything else he could teach him before leaving. K-Run responded that he had already chosen him as his disciple and what more he wanted from him. As Damien continued to express his confusion and disappointment, K-Run took out a book and handed it to Damien. He instructed Damien to refer to it whenever he needed help and to avoid seeking him out. Before Damien could react further, K-Run activated a formation and disappeared into it. Damien was left stunned and bewildered. Damien was left in shock when his master disappeared without giving any further guidance. While still in disbelief, he received a notification that he was given a quest. This task was to resurrect Shaka, the god of darkness, and defeat the 6 ruling gods and their clans. The information he just read left Damien completely astounded. Engulfed by a sense of being overburdened and uncertain about his ability to undertake such a Herculean task by himself, Damien was a cauldron of anger and frustration. He couldn't hold back his outcry, pondering aloud how he could ever fulfill the formidable mission bestowed upon him. Doubts clouded his mind, making him question the feasibility of accomplishing the task at hand. Moreover, he couldn't shake off the worry for the families of the 6 deities he was destined to confront, particularly those who had previously stood as allies in battle, including the fiery Crimson Agnes, the frosty Siren of the Ice, the insightful Halo of the Mind, the unyielding Cyrus of Steel, and the steadfast Luke of the Boulder. Damien's mind was racing, and he tried to come to terms with the gravity of the situation. He knew that these families were the most powerful in the world, with abilities that were considered disaster class. Among them, the family of Arya, Jong Yumin, the Radiant King Arthur, had obtained the infinite mana item, Infinity Circle, and was praised as the god of magic. Damien wondered if he could really defeat such powerful adversaries. However, as he thought about his comrades, he realized that there was no need to be scared. For some reason, he had been given the opportunity to come back in time, just when he thought it was the end. This gave him the determination he needed to face the challenge head-on. With newfound determination, Damien vowed to clear the quest assigned to him, no matter what the cost. He declared that he would put an end to the ill fate that had befallen him. As Damien was still processing the previous notifications, he was surprised to see even more notifications popping up. He read through them, realizing that he had acquired the Apocalypse Invocation, the Book of the Black Covenant. The notifications revealed that new clauses had been added, but due to his low level, some of the clauses were deactivated. Damien was intrigued by the possibilities the book presented, with its many abilities like Return to Village, Oracle, Rune Page, Item Appraisal, Disassembly, Synthesization, and Creation. He was thrilled to have acquired an all-in-one multi-item, something he had heard about before. Damien opened the book and was pleased to see its contents. He thought luck was following him, and he felt unstoppable. He wondered if he should test the book's ability and decided to start by disassembling an item. He selected a boar head as his material of choice and began the process of disassembling it. With a focused look on his face, he began to synthesize and create the item. As moments ticked by, Damien couldn't contain his enthusiasm and declared that the crafting process was finally finished. When he scrutinized the freshly forged item, he realized it was a wild boar helmet, a protective headgear fashioned from the skull of a massive boar. The helmet boasted remarkable attributes, enhancing HP, magical prowess, defense, and overall statistics, along with augmenting damage inflicted on beast-type adversaries. Despite the impressive features of the helmet, Damien found himself unable to muster genuine happiness over the accomplishment. Damien considered the worth of the item in the game's economy and calculated that it was worth a significant amount of gold. However, Damien also realized that he couldn't simply create items whenever he was low on money or he would risk becoming destitute. With this in mind, he decided to give the leather to the village head and prioritize creating items strategically in the future. Damien went to the village head's home and gave him the leather. The village head asked in surprise if Damien had caught it himself, and Damien confirmed that he did. The village head was impressed and wrote a recommendation letter for Damien, advising him to leave the island and head to the main continent. The village head also instructed Damien to go to the harbor on the very east of the island and take a boat to the main continent. Damien received a notification that he had acquired the recommendation and thanked the village head for his help. With a sense of purpose, Damien left the village head's house and headed towards the harbor, ready to embark on his journey. Damien took a break at the harbor, eating bread and checking his progress. He was a level 16 witch doctor with no affiliation and a negative alignment. He held titles such as Atrocity, the one who defeated the wild boar alone, and Agent of Revenge. His stats were impressive, with high intelligence and talent, and he had mastered skills such as shooting poison darts, bloody impulse and zombification. He had no remaining stat or skill points, but knew he had much more to accomplish. After reviewing his status, Daimon thought about his Agent of Revenge title, which indicated that he was chosen by the 7th god and possessed an unknown power. The title also provided significant bonuses during PvP battles, such as increased attack power, defense, attribute resistance, and status abnormality resistance. Although endowed with a title that granted him significant power and authority, Daimon was reluctant to exploit it to the fullest, burdened by his aversion to causing death. Suddenly, a harrowing shriek pierced the air, immediately drawing Damon's attention to its source. He witnessed a distressing scene. A man lay grievously injured on the ground, fervently begging for help, with a mage ominously standing over him, seemingly indifferent to his pleas. The mage appeared to be punishing the man for some sort of transgression, and Daimon couldn't help but wonder if they were killer mags. Killer mags were the mags who used their overwhelming power in the beginning of the game to go around and do player killing. The killer mage continued to speak to the injured man, threatening him and demanding payment. Daimon could tell that the mage was the leader of the group, as he had managed to block off the wharf with just 20 people. Despite the situation, the killer mage tried to justify their actions, claiming that they weren't bad people. In the middle of a crowded audience, a foreigner seemed to be displeased by how things were unfolding. He unsheathed his sword and without any warning charged at the mage. Despite the sudden attack, the killer mage remained calm and collected. He activated his energy bolt skill and launched a powerful attack at the foreigner, leaving him stunned and bewildered. With an evil smile on his face, the killer mage taunted the foreigner, as if he was expecting the attack. The spectators could only watch, their faces twisted in horror and disbelief, as the chief of the killer mags reveled triumphantly in his dark victory. The leader, basking in his moment, directed his comrades to escort their departing visitor. Yet, before he could utter another word, a sudden and brutal decapitation of one of his allies occurred. This unforeseen act left the killer mage and his group stunned, unable to comprehend the abrupt loss of one of their members. A wave of panic and confusion engulfed them as they scrambled to understand the unfolding chaos. One of the gang members pointed out a figure nearby wearing a distinctive boar helmet, wondering aloud if this mysterious stranger was responsible for the sudden and gruesome attack. As the group of evil mags turned their attention to the figure, they quickly realized that it was indeed Damien who had beheaded their comrade. The sight of the boar helmet and the aura of menace emanating from Damien sent a chill down their spines. The leader of the killer mags tried to act tough, asking who Damien was, but his confidence quickly faded as Damien demanded payment for their lives. With a menacing expression, Damien gave the group a mere 10 seconds to pay up, warning them that it was their only chance to survive. As Damien stood before the group of evil mags, he could feel their malice and contempt toward him. The leader of the group spoke out in disbelief and disdain, mocking Damien for his seemingly foolish actions. However, Damien had a plan in mind, and he began a 10-second countdown, his voice ringing out clearly amidst the tense atmosphere. The mags grew more and more irritated as Damien counted down, and their leader demanded that they all go and kill him. But as the countdown reached its climax, Damien vanished into thin air, leaving the mags bewildered and confused. Suddenly, something began to rain down from above, and the mags cried out in pain and agony as they were struck by Damien's deadly attacks. Damien watched on with satisfaction as he eliminated his foes one by one, counting their numbers with glee. He knew that his title, Agent of Revenge, had granted him greater PvP damage, and he had used every advantage at his disposal to take down his enemies. The evil mage leader could only look on in disbelief and frustration, realizing that he had underestimated Damien's power. As the dust settled and the mags lay defeated, Damien approached their leader with a twisted grin on his face, holding a corrupted elixir in his hand. He taunted the mage with a questioning tone, asking if this had exceeded his expectations. Brian's eyes slowly opened as he regained consciousness, feeling a sharp pain all over his body. As he struggled to stand up, he was surprised to see a familiar face in front of him. Brian called out her name Wendy and asked her where he was. She helped him up and asked him in concern if he was all right. Confused and disoriented, Brian struggled to remember what had happened. Suddenly, the memories came flooding back. He had been attacked by the evil mags and knocked unconscious. Anger surged through him as he remembered the attack, and he swore to take revenge on them. However, Wendy tried to calm him down, telling him that they were currently in the middle of a stream and reminded him of the mag's strength, and suggested that they wait for a better opportunity to strike. Brian's mind was still focused on revenge, and he asked her a profound question: when does a streamer truly die? Is it when they lose all their items or when they're at level 1? He answered his own question, saying that a streamer truly dies when they decide not to play anymore. With his resolve steeled, Brian swore to crush the evil mags and avenge his defeat. But Wendy and Brain were caught off guard by a sudden explosion, causing them to turn their heads in the direction of the commotion. To their surprise, they saw a group of evil mags running through the midst of explosions, with Damien trailing behind them, mercilessly slaughtering each one in turn. Damien counted the number of enemies he had killed so far, laughing menacingly as he did so. The evil mage leader watched in fear and shock as Damien demonstrated an unprecedented level of control and power. He ordered his teammates to cast their spells and use up their reserved mana. The mage leader himself also began casting spells, determined to take down Damien. Damien looked at the group of evil mags and decided to use his bloody impulse again. The mags launched their spells at the same moment, targeting Damien with a high amount of mana. The attack landed where Damien was standing, causing the evil mags to think that they had finally got him. But before the evil mage leader could finish cautioning his teammates started falling down, killed by Damien's dart blower. Damien stood victorious amidst the carnage, grinning at the evil mage leader and his teammates. Seeing this, the evil mags became increasingly worried. One of them expressed their horror, wondering whether the opponent was truly human and whether he could possibly be on the same level as them. Another mage added to the conversation, questioning how the opponent had managed to dodge all their attacks without getting hit even once. The leader of the group felt frustrated, realizing that if they continued in this way, they would all surely die. He made a decision, barking orders to his teammates to endure for just 3 more minutes. Meanwhile, Damien looked on with curiosity, wondering what the evil mage leader had planned. Suddenly, the leader began to cast a spell, muttering under his breath that he would turn Damien into a fried skewer with lightning. Brian on the other side sat glued to his notification screen, his eyes darting back and forth between the comments flooding his live stream. As he read through the comments, he couldn't help but voice his bewilderment, wondering aloud where someone as crazy as Damien could have come from. Despite his doubts, Brian still found himself cheering on the tank boy, urging him to keep fighting. But his excitement was short-lived when Wendy interjected, berating him for being distracted and insisting that he focus on the task at hand. Brian, however, was too caught up in the moment to pay her any heed. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to the viewer count on his stream, which had skyrocketed to over 200,000. An exhilarating rush of adrenaline flooded him as he grasped the golden opportunity unfolding before him. He turned towards Wendy, his face tinged with anticipation, and inquired if she was prepared, only to receive a response filled with bewilderment. Brian, with a determined glint in his eye, pointed towards Damien, unveiling his ambitious plan to seize this moment to escalate his own renown by defeating him. The fierce confrontation between Damien and the nefarious mags had escalated to its utmost intensity, reaching a fever pitch in the battle's crescendo. One of the mags launched an energy bolt toward Damien, but he easily dodged the attack with graceful ease. Damien then turned his attention to the evil mage leader, who appeared to be preparing for something. Wondering what his opponent had in store, Damien charged toward him. The other mags were filled with fear as they saw Damien approaching and began to run away, unsure of what to do next. The leader of the group, however, remained determined, yelling at his teammates to stay put. He had gathered enough mana and was ready to unleash his ultimate attack. With a loud shout, he invoked the name of his spell, calling forth a powerful lightning strike that covered the entire area around Damien. As Damien was hit by the lightning and fell to the ground, Brian and Wendy looked on in shock. The evil mage leader, who had exhausted all his mana with his final blow, had a smile of satisfaction on his face as he declared victory. His teammates congratulated him on his success, calling out his name Park Mandu, but their celebration was suddenly interrupted by a sharp sound. One of the mags who had been praising the leader suddenly had his head cut off. The group was startled and the leader looked in the direction of the sound, fear evident in his eyes. He muttered in disbelief that it was impossible, and then he saw Damien standing there. With a confident smile, Damien asked the leader what he meant by impossible. The leader was taken aback by Damien's sudden appearance and Damien praised him for being smart and having good sense. As the mage leader attempted to cast a spell, his arms were swiftly sliced off by Damien. The leader writhed in pain, yelling out in agony as he fell to the ground. Damien stood over him, declaring that he believed in paying back kindness 100-fold and taking revenge with 1,000 times more force. This was his creed. Tears streamed down the mage leader's face as he begged Damien not to come any closer. And only a loud cry echoed through that area. Brian, who had been planning to attack Damien, was stunned by the gruesome scene before him. Wendy could not bear to watch and turned away, exclaiming her disbelief. Brian looked at the beaten mage leader and questioned if this was too much, realizing that Damien was truly evil. The mage leader pleaded for mercy, apologizing for his actions. Damien poured an elixir over him, which started to heal his wounds. Damien then started pounding on the mage once again, stating that it would feel even better to beat him up after healing him. Finally, after a long and grueling fight, looking down at the lifeless body of the evil mage leader. With a deep breath, he declared that it took a while. Damien heard a series of notifications and looked down at the dead mage, wondering why he had decided to engage in a fight that he knew he couldn't win. Damien looked at the notifications and saw that he had committed an act of PK, which had lowered his alignment. As Damien looked through the notifications, he discovered that he had obtained a large number of items, including 184 toothless daggers, 209 beginners t-shirts, 113 coarse leather leggings, and 98 staffs made of old wood. He also found a wilderness ring and was unsure of how to use it. Damien was surprised when he saw a new notification, which informed him that he had obtained 3,400,000 gold. He exclaimed in shock, realizing that this amount of gold was worth $3,000 to $4,000. Excited by his newfound wealth, Damien considered selling the gold right away. He then opened the game bank selling feature and quickly posted a message advertising the sale of his 3 million gold. He offered it at a cheap price and asked interested parties to leave him a message. Within moments, Damien was flooded with messages from potential buyers, all eager to make a deal. One person even asked if negotiations were possible. Damien was thrilled with the response and wondered which buyer he should choose. He finally made a decision and selected a buyer, which prompted a notification that he had finished the deal. To Damien's surprise, his rank had changed from normal to VIP, thanks to the quick and efficient service provided by the game bank. Another notification informed him that the selling price had totaled 35,610,000 won, which made him realize that his AC account was his future. Overjoyed by his success, Damien shouted with glee, "AC is the future." In Cambridge, Massachusetts, a man stood near a large glass window in a building, sipping his coffee and enjoying its taste. This man was Alan Jacobs, the CEO of the best MCN enterprise and internet streaming platform, Switch. Suddenly, he heard a voice asking if the president was inside the room. A worker entered and informed him that the chief operating officer, William Balmore, was looking for him. Alan replied that he was ready and asked the worker to let William in. When William entered the room and sat on the sofa, Alan welcomed him and asked how he had been. William replied that he had been well and asked about Alan's condition, noticing his good mood. Alan chuckled and expressed his gratitude to William, saying that he was curious about what he had come to tell him. After Alan asked what the news was, William asked if Alan knew what AC was, to which Alan responded that it was a game that was currently trending and popular among their streamers. William then handed Alan his tablet and showed him the hottest clip of the week, which surprised Alan. William suggested that they had a new perspective streamer and asked Alan if he thought it would be a great business venture. Back in the game world, Damien made a call to his mom and informed her that he had sent some money to her account. He also mentioned that he had received a bonus. However, his mom replied that he should not have sent the money as he himself didn't have a lot on himself. Damien brushed off her comment and said that he would visit her soon. After hanging up, he looked at his virtual screen and thought about investing the rest of his money. With the recent appearance of AC and Evertail, the cryptocurrency market had seen a sharp increase in the last 10 years. Damien decided to use this trend to solidify his financial foundation. He thought about investing 3 million won in one of the cryptocurrency future option stocks. However, as soon as he clicked on the buy option, he received multiple notifications about the cryptocurrency's drastic fall and loss rate. In just 3 seconds, he lost all of his money due to the forceful liquidation of his assets. Damien was shocked and frustrated as he looked at the fluctuation chart again, only to receive notifications about the increase in Bitcoin's future options leverage rate. Damien realized that someone had interfered with his investment, and with tears streaming down his face, he knew that he only had AC left. In the bustling environment of the Jinsung startup business factory situated in Changchun City, Jilin Province, China, the tranquility was shattered when an anxious employee hurriedly entered the room. Ming Chen, the CEO, was in the midst of lighting a cigarette when he paused to question the employee about the pressing matter. The employee, wearing a look of deep concern, relayed the unsettling news that a significant incident had transpired. The game bank had just disclosed the sudden appearance of a whopping 3 million gold. Ming Chen was shocked and dropped his lighter, asking if the news was real. The employee confirmed that it was, and showed him the proof. Ming Chen was angry and couldn't believe that someone had made such a large amount of gold. He had invested a lot of time and money into the gaming company called AC, taking care of all the operational equipment, and even purchasing a large amount of the Galaxy M24 apps capsule with an enormous investment from a higher-up he knew. However, the news of the 3 million gold sales was a huge setback. Ming Chen realized that the amount of gold exceeded the output of Jinsung, and that a person, not a company, had made that much. The single sale price was also the best price, which meant that if people like him kept popping up, then AC Gold's market price would drop dramatically. Ming Chen smacked his table in frustration and exclaimed, "What the hell?" as he tried to figure out how to deal with this unexpected turn of events. He hit the employee with the tablet on the head and demanded to know why he hadn't been told earlier. The employee tried to explain, but Ming Chen cut him off with a shout, ordering him to find out who was responsible. Ming Chen was worried about the future of Jinsung and realized that it was only a matter of time before he went bankrupt, and couldn't repay his investment. He then ordered the employee to find out who the hell this bastard was, and the employee ran out to fulfill his boss's orders. Damien lay on a boat that had already sailed, thinking back to the island he had just left. It was filled with many twists and turns, but thanks to a guy named Park Mandu, he acquired a lot of valuable materials. Damien opened his inventory and contemplated disassembling some items. After a successful item disassembly, he was pleased to find that he had acquired 8 low-grade iron. With this much material, he realized he could make more money than other users who were still on the island. His efforts had also paid off in terms of experience points, as he had gained multiple levels and reached level 20. Damien thought about how the effect of atrocity had helped him level up a lot and decided to take a look at his status. He was a witch doctor with no affiliation and very low alignment. He had the title of Atrocity, the one who defeated the wild boar alone and the agent of revenge. His stats were impressive, especially intelligence, which was above 50, and with strength, HP, agility, talent, and luck being over 10. Damien had no stat points remaining, but he was satisfied with his progress. Damien pondered over his current skill set, wondering whether he should invest in any other skills. He opened the skill window to take a look at his options. Among the skills listed were shooting of poison darts, control the dead, bloody impulse, corrupted elixir, voodoo doll, and zombification. He read the description of bloody impulse, which had already been invested in and reached level 5. It had an attribute of blood and could increase a target's attack and movement speed by 100% for 100 seconds, while consuming 1% of the target's stamina per second. He then moved on to corrupted elixir, which had also been invested in, and reached level 3. It had an attribute of poison and allowed him to throw a special elixir that would inflict 90% physical damage. Once hit, the target would also suffer 140% magic damage for 330 seconds, while their defense decreased by 20%. Lastly, Damien examined Control the Dead, which had an attribute of summoning and allowed him to summon applicable dead monsters at 50% of their stats. The number of summons would be proportionate to his magic power. He also looked at Voodoo Doll, which had the attribute of a curse and required him to consume an item and curse his target. Every time he stabbed the doll, his target's stamina would drop by 1%. Damien wasn't particularly impressed with these skills, especially Control the Dead, which could only summon weaker monsters such as chicks or chickens. The idea of using a voodoo doll seemed somewhat cumbersome to Damien, given the necessity of hauling around a doll item wherever he went. Yet, he acknowledged that these abilities could potentially prove beneficial in unforeseen circumstances. As he pondered this, his thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a notification that appeared abruptly. The alert brought news of an update concerning a fresh location. A smile spread across Damien's face as he gazed forward, filled with the realization that a thrilling adventure in a new locale was about to commence. The notification also informed him that the world map had been updated. Damien looked at the view and couldn't wait to start his journey in the main continent. The ship's captain bid farewell to Damien, and Damien replied with a thank you and looked ahead, taking in the familiar view. He recognized that the location he was at was one of the most lively kingdoms on the eastern part of the Arsha continent, the center of the eastern side, Terra. As Damien walked, he saw many public notifications from other players requesting to team up for quests, grinding, and recruitments. He thought to himself that it was just as he remembered. Even though there were so many people, there was no one who had noticed his disposition. Damien then saw 3 people standing in the middle of the street, shouting out that they were recruiting people who wanted to raid a dungeon right now. They also mentioned that they treated healers favorably and were looking for temporary mercenaries for 1 week. They would provide meals and lodging. Damien commented that guild recruitment was also the same, but suddenly he changed his thoughts and started looking for the place he had been searching. Finally, he spotted the familiar sign that marked the entrance to the Adventurers Guild. Pushing his way through the throngs of people, he made his way to the front desk where several others were discussing their schedules and requests. Realizing that he was running out of time, Damien squeezed past them, as he had no time to waste if he wanted to make his application today. The manager of the Adventurers Guild in Terra Kingdom, Hatsan, called out to Maria and asked her to bring him all the adventurer applications from that day. Maria saluted and replied with an affirmative answer. While Hatsan was busy, Damien called out to him with a greeting. Hatsan looked a little frustrated at first, but Damien continued and confidently stated that he would like to get a license. Hatsan was visibly happy when Damien called him by his name and remarked that he looked like a new adventurer with good eyes, who had taken the time to research him. Damien replied that he should be at least that aware if he wanted to be a mercenary. Hatsan agreed with him and thought to himself about the Adventurers Guild, its branches throughout the Arsha continent, and how it was a facility that all NPCs and adventurers utilized. He also noted that there were some people who paid to make requests and others who did the requests to make money. The Adventurers Guild's main job was to mediate between the two parties, but there weren't many people who utilized this feature properly. However, Hatsan thought that Damien was quite quick to catch on. Hatsan then confirmed with Damien that a license was needed to do that sort of work. Damien replied that he had heard as much. Hatsan then asked if Damien wanted to apply right away, to which Damien replied with an enthusiastic yes. Hatsan explained to Damien that in order to become an adventurer, one needs to take a simple test that involves 10 stages in an arena behind the lobby. Depending on the stage you pass, you will be assigned a tier. Damien asked if Hatsan thought that he should come back after preparing himself if he wanted a high grade, and Hatsan confirmed that it is normal to take a couple of days to prepare. However, Damien surprised Hatsan by insisting on taking the test right away, saying that he didn't think there would be much of a difference after preparation. Hatsan warned him that the test would be difficult to prepare for, but Damien was confident in his skills and insisted on taking the test immediately. Hatsan was impressed by Damien's confidence and led him to the arena. As Damien walked, a notification popped up in front of him, detailing the Adventurers Guild license exam quest, which required him to prove his skills by passing the exam. The quest was classified as epic, and the reward was the Adventurers Guild license. Damien smiled while reading the quest info and thought it had been a while since he had taken a test. He followed Hatsan to the arena, and as soon as he entered the arena, he saw a large crowd of people waiting there to take the exam. Maria's voice echoed through the air as she announced through her megaphone that adventurers from numbers 301 to 400 should get ready for their exam. Excitement filled the air as the participants started preparing themselves for what was to come. Hatsan placed his hand on Damien's shoulder and wished him luck. Damien nodded and replied with gratitude. Soon a gate opened in the arena and Damien recognized it as a summon gate, a masterpiece created by Master Arceus from the Monster Mag's tower. Damien marveled at its beauty and wondered what creatures lay beyond the gate. Maria's voice boomed once more, announcing that the exam area was beyond the gate. She explained that the adventurers would have to defeat the summoned monsters to pass each of the 10 stages. If they couldn't continue anymore, all they had to do was shout, "I forfeit." One of the players raised a question, asking Maria if the monsters were real. Maria responded, explaining that the monsters were an illusion created by the guild mags. She then added that there wasn't much difference between the illusion and reality, considering that most of the adventurers' guild requests were related to monsters anyway. Damien thought to himself that it was a practical method. Maria smiled and announced that they would begin the exam. As she spoke, the gate closed, surprising the players who were still waiting for their turn. They wondered aloud if the exam had started already. Outside the gate, screams and shouts could be heard from the players who had already entered. Finally, he muttered to himself, asking if it had begun. Voices could be heard from inside the gate, shouting and commanding the players to kill the monsters. The players waiting for their turn were shocked and worried by what they heard. They wondered if it was dangerous to enter the summon gate. Maria reassured everyone that it was just an illusion and there was no need to be scared. She then announced that it was time for the next batch of participants, numbers 401 to 500, to get ready for the exam. The players were surprised that their turn had come so quickly. Damien started stretching his shoulders, preparing himself for the upcoming challenge. Another player expressed his concern, asking if they were all trying to kill them. Maria reassured them that it was just an exam, and they needed to clear the monsters to proceed to the next stage. She added that those who weren't happy with the testing method could leave the testing area but would lose their adventurer's license. One of the players expressed their determination to continue, saying that they were sure everything would be fine. Another added that since it was just a game, they could die and come back in 60 hours. Maria then pointed towards the summoned gate and questioned with a grin, ready to start the next exam. She gave the signal to begin, and the players entered the gate. Inside, an announcement greeted them, informing them of the rules for the exam. The challenge comprised 10 distinct levels, and at each level, the participants were required to vanquish all the beasts to progress to the subsequent zone. In case they chose to withdraw, a simple gesture of raising their hand accompanied by the proclamation, "I give up," would suffice. Individuals competing alone who couldn't overcome a beast would be instantly disqualified. Time was of the essence, with only 9 minutes and 59 seconds remaining before the onset of the following trial. Damien surveyed his surroundings, taking note of the 10 people present in the testing area. And he didn't recognize any of them. Just then, an announcement blared over, signaling the start of the exam. Damien felt frustrated with the lack of information provided. He had expected a battle royale system where the participants would fight each other, but it seemed like that wasn't going to happen. One of the players voiced their confusion, wondering if they were supposed to work together to clear the exam. Another player responded in agreement. Meanwhile, Umju expressed her fear to her teammate, prompting Umju's husband to reassure her as he promised her that he will make sure they leave quickly. After the announcement, a user named Gentlemaned Guy approached some of the players and greeted them with a smile. He introduced himself and suggested that they work together to clear the exam. He mentioned that it was said that when you brush up against someone, it's fate and that they should help each other. Gentlemaned Guy then pointed out that if they cleared the last stage, they would start as a silver tier instead of an iron tier. The other players were surprised by this information. Damien, who was observing the situation, noticed that Gentlemaned Guy had a rare and expensive 5-piece set of full iron armor, and concluded that he had spent a lot of money on the game. Gentlemaned Guy introduced his party members, who he had been playing with since the open beta. He suggested that they all work together to clear the exam, to which the others agreed happily. Damien observed the scene, noting that Gentlemaned Guy's social skills were above average. He wondered if his tongue was his true weapon. After introducing his party members, Gentlemaned Guy noticed a woman with a mask who he hadn't met yet. He greeted her and suggested that they work together. However, the woman didn't respond and gave him a cold look. Gentle tried again, but the woman interrupted him and told him to stop spouting nonsense. She refused to be in a party with a bunch of idiots and told Gentle to get lost. Gentle was taken aback by the woman's harsh words and questioned her if she was being too harsh. But the woman ignored him and looked away while saying that she had no idea what this gigolo-looking guy was saying. Suddenly, the announcement sounded, saying that the next test would begin soon. Everyone was surprised by the announcement, and a portal opened up from which goblins started to enter. Gentlemaned Guy warned everyone that the monsters were coming and to prepare for battle. The players agreed, with one player expressing enthusiasm to give it a try, and another suggesting that they fight together to earn a high tier. Gentle-mannered Guy scoffed at the standards of the Adventurers Guild, believing that they were not high enough if they gave everyone a license. Suddenly, a dart flew by Gentle-mannered Guy's face, and it hit a goblin. The goblin flew back and cried out in pain. As Gentle saw the goblin's corpse disappear, in confusion, he asked what had just happened, but the next second he was surprised to see Damien charging toward the goblins with his fists. As Damien smashed Goblin with his fists, Gentle-mannered Guy asked him what he was doing, but Damien ignored him and began to slaughter the goblins. As the goblins were defeated, notifications popped up, indicating the number of illusionary goblins that had been defeated. Damien stood victorious, and the other player looked on in surprise at the dead goblin corpses. Soon an announcement was made that the first stage had finished, and the test results would be announced. The results revealed that Damien had earned 10 points, and informed all the players that the second stage would soon begin. Damien continued walking towards the next gate, ignoring Gentle-mannered Guy's angry outburst. Gentle seethed in frustration, feeling like his plans to monopolize points had been ruined by Damien's actions. He shouted at Damien, calling him an immoral bastard and threatening violence. Damien just scratched his ears, and responded with a clever remark about hearing a barking dog. He believed that the test was all about killing the most monsters and that the evaluation was based on fighting abilities, with the highest tier license going to the last survivor. Gentle, unable to contain his anger, swung his sword at Damien. Damien looked at Gentle's with a calm face, unfazed by his sudden attack. He then quickly reacted by throwing an elixir bottle at Gentle's face, causing him to shout in pain and swing his sword blindly. Damien dodged the attacks with ease, recognizing that Gentle was not just acting desperately, but was actually reading his presence and attacking accordingly. Damien realized that this was going to be a tougher challenge than he had initially thought, and he prepared himself for what was to come. Gentle turned towards his teammates and urged them to attack the enemy. The healer cast a cure spell on Gentle, while ROA attacked with Hawk's Eye and Minky cast a fireball spell. Gentle smiled as he felt his vision getting clearer and prepared to attack Damien. Gentle then used his swordsman skill, Counter-Strike. As Gentle swung his sword towards Damien, he disappeared and reappeared behind Gentle, kicking him in the back. Gentle flew back from the impact and fell down, and Damien ran towards the players' group and caught Umju in an arm lock, threatening them to try shooting if they could. And if they kill her, they will all die. Umju's husband pleaded with Damien to release her. Just then Gentle got up from the ground and demanded that Umju's husband shoot at Damien. Umju's husband was confused and asked why Gentle was behaving so aggressively. Gentle became increasingly angry and insisted that Umju's husband attack him. However, Umju's husband was hesitant and worried, unable to bring himself to harm his own lover. As the situation became more tense, Umju's husband caught hold of Gentle's arm and begged him not to shoot. Gentle grew increasingly frustrated with Umju's husband and threw him back in annoyance, declaring that he was not an easy target. He then scolded his teammates for not obeying his command to shoot. As his teammates struggled to figure out what to do, Gentle grew angry and lashed out at them, calling them pathetic bastards, who were incapable of taking action. In a violent outburst, Gentle brandished his knife and aimed it at Umju's husband, eliciting a horrified scream from Umju. Swiftly shifting his focus, Gentle targeted both Damien and Umju, launching a frenzied attack with his knife while yelling vehemently for them to meet their end. Yet, amidst Gentle's ferocious assault, Damien remained composed, his face breaking into a serene smile and his eyes sparkling with a defiant glow as he bravely faced the enraged attacker.
So you guys came, I, the top G, announced that you guys are officially on the road of top G, but you guys are not there yet. If you want to be the top G, then subscribe to this channel and make it to 1K subscribers. In this channel, I will give away gift cards to 10 people when I get to 1K subs, so make it fast. As for the gift for the day, I will give you 1,000 ChatGPT prompts for free if you message me in this email. I will provide you with that immediately.